the beginning part, very simple. Basically, I'm taking a number of uprights based on the border that I've chosen, and I'm taking them down to the right. If you're right-handed, of course. If you're left-handed, you will do everything in the other way. So, for example, a 2-rod border will start by taking 2 uprights down behind one, say, and that will be the beginning of a 2-rod border. 2 uprights have come down to the right. Now, a 3-rod border will start by taking 3 uprights to the right as such. This is the beginning of a 3-rod border. Very simple. 4-rod border, there you have it. 5-rod border, couldn't be more simple. This is how you begin. You're taking a number of uprights based on the border that you've chosen down to the right. Now you can see here that I've only taken the uprights down behind one upright. But it can also be behind 2 and even 3 and sometimes 4. Basically you can do whatever you want, but most commonly you will see behind 1, 2 or 3, and I will try to talk in more detail about how to choose a border and how to know what to do in the last part. So basically, if I'm doing a 5-rod border, I will probably go behind 2 and not behind 1, but really everything is possible. So it looks something like that. It looks exactly like that, not something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That will be the beginning of a 5-rod border behind 2. You see, you've taken down 5 uprights and you've turned them into rods for weaving, as in a 5-rod whale. Exactly the same. Okay, so the next part after the beginning part will be what I call the process. So as you can see here, we are making a 2-rod border. This is the simplest kind of rod border, a 2-rod border. So I've chosen to start with this. Now basically, once you've taken down the uprights to the right, you are treating them as if they were whaling rods, or in this case pairing or twining rods, because there are only 2. So I think of them as 2 rods and I just make one weaving move. I weave, and after I weave, I'm taking down another upright and making sure that they sit alongside each other like that. So the process will be to make one weave and taking down an upright. One weave, one comes down. Now after I've made 2 weaves here, as you can see that I have couples. Out of these couples, the left one, or the outer one if you will, has actually finished its work. Only the one on the right will have to continue going. So this one stays outside, it has finished its work. This one is making a weave, and after every weave we're taking down an upright. Once again, the left-right is left and the right one is the right one. Easy way to remember. The left one gets left out and the right one is the right one. So you weave one, you're taking down one. You weave one, you're taking down one. Very, very simple, very easy to remember. You weave one, you're taking down one. Now I'm going to open this up and I'm going to show you that this is exactly the same in 3, 4, 5, 10 rod borders. So let's make a 3 rod border behind one. That's 1, 2, 3. Now you weave one, taking one down. You weave once and you're taking one down. Weave one, taking down one. Now if you have trouble knowing where you have to get out, or you have trouble with counting the uprights, like in front of how many and behind how many you have to go, you really don't have to overthink it. If my last weaver or my last rod is here, then the next one will be here. Very, very simple. I don't have to count, I don't have to think too much. I just have to know that my last rod is here, the next one will be here. See? Behind one. Very, very simple. Now, getting to the last stage here. So, as you can see, this, I'll do it again. This rod here is making a weave, but there's no rod here, as you can see, because we've already taken it down at the beginning. So some people might confuse and think that this is the right place for it to get inside, but this is a mistake. This one sits here. What we have to understand is that this upright we have to think of it as if it was still standing. So I can even take a little stick like that and use it. And this helps me see that this is the right place for this rod to get out. After I've made a wailing move, I'm taking down another upright. And these two, you might see that they don't really hold themselves in place, so you have to hold them. Now, after this move, I'm making another move, and this should get out of here. Not the first one. And I'm going to use this feed. This one is making that move, and we're going to take down an upright alongside with it, like so. Now we are getting to the last part, the finishing part, which I will show separately. Before we move to the last part, I want to show the middle part again in a 5 rod border. So I've taken down 5 uprights behind 2 this time. So now I'm making one wailing move and taking down an upright, but now you can see that the uprights are continuing going behind 2. If we started behind 2, then all the uprights will go behind 2. Making one wailing move and taking down an upright. Exactly the same. You can see now that it's all rod borders are exactly the same. You have to understand the principles and you can do whatever you want. Now, also I want to talk about some theory behind this. You can see here that In fact, every upright is making two moves, it's making two steps in the course of making a border. And it is the same for every rod border. Every upright is making two steps. The first step will be to take it down, as we've done in the beginning, and the second step will be the weaving. What I'm doing here, I'm making the wailing move. This is the second step. So for this rod, the first step was to take it down to the right behind 2, and now its second step is to come here, not like this, like that. Okay, this is making its second step now. Now all of these have already made their second step, so they are finished. Okay, getting down to the end of this. This one, we've said earlier that if we have some trouble in this part, we can take a little stick like that, and it will help us see where we have to get out of. Just like that. Very simple. Now, this one is getting in like that and back out in this first gap here that we've created with the first upright. And once we've done that, we are taking an upright down alongside with it. Now this one will only go behind one upright, as we've said earlier, which is this. So it has to come inside like that and out again, and the last standing upright will go behind 2. So basically it will join this one, but it will not join it like this, because that would be a mistake. It has to go underneath the next 2 uprights. This would be the first here and the second, so behind both of them, like that. Okay, so we are at the finishing part of the border, and you can see that I've made a 2-rod border, which means that I have 2 pairs left in the finishing part. Basically I have 2 more moves to make. This would be the first and this would be the second. And this is the principle, because in a 2-rod border you will have 2 pairs left, and in a 10-rod border you will have 10 pairs left. The principle stays the same. So now we have to make our weaving move, but this is different than what we've done in the process, in the sense that we're not making a weaving move and then joining an upright. Here the uprights have already been taken down to the right at the beginning. These are our first 2 uprights. So we're actually joining the rods to an already taken down uprights. And basically the move is just the same. It's just a pairing move. I'm just going over this and behind this rod here, this upright here. So, like, if you can see that here, just like that. Very, very simple. Now the second one, right here. Now basically where can I go wrong here? I mean, the only thing that I can think of that people can do wrong in this situation is to go underneath that one, which will be a mistake. That one and under that one and out again. You have to go over this one here and behind the upright, which is this. Basically, you might say, if you kind of think about the upright as standing up, so you might think of it as still standing right here, and then being taken down like that over the weave. So this is the upright here. Maybe you can see it more clearly now. So basically that's it. We've finished our 2 rod border, and we can trim the edges now. I also want to show a different method of making this finishing move in the 2 rod border, what we've just done. Now this is the same in terms of where I'm getting out of, and everything is the same except from how I'm doing it. Sometimes the material, the willow, has difficulty making this move, the in and out. Basically we're going in and out again in one move, because it's basically a pairing move or a wailing move in other borders. So this move is, sometimes it would be easy to do. I think in brown willow is always easier, and in some thinner and willows, but sometimes it would be difficult. So we won't do this. We would break it down into 2 steps. We would get in. This would be the first step, and then we would kink the rod in 2 places. We would actually kink it. This I don't want to kink it because I'm going to use it again. And after we've kinked it, we are going to twist it, to twist this part here, so that it would be easier to for the material to make this tough move here without breaking. So after we've twisted it, we will get out again, as you can see here. And after we've done this, we will pull on the rod to get it into position, and then we will take our bodkin, if we can find it, and we're going to tuck it underneath here and push it upwards further into position. Of course, I'm just showing on reed what you might want to do in willow. So let's do it again. We're breaking it down into 2 moves, and this might actually help you understand better the place where you have to get in and out. So we've gotten in, and it looks kind of weird because this kind of stands in the air here, but this will change in a second. So suppose we've twisted the material here, we are getting out again underneath everything. And once we've done it, we will have to pull on it pretty hard, especially when talking about willow. And you can see that it jumps into position here, and we're further arranging it in position with the bodkin. So that will be another method for a material which has troubles doing this move. Now we're going to see the finishing part of a 4-rod border. You can see here that I got 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs, which means we are in a 4-rod border. So we're taking the first rod here, and basically I think the easiest thing to do is not really to count above 3 and behind 1, which is what I've done here in this border. Instead, the easier thing to do is to see where you have to get out, and we have to get out here after the last one, here, just like that. You might even take a little stick or a little piece of reed and just do it to help you see where it has to go. So it goes like this and over here. This is what we're going to do. We're going behind 1 here. So just like that. That's 1. And you can see another interesting thing here is that the first one that we are weaving, that one, is going underneath 1. That would be 1. It's just going underneath that one. Then the second one is going underneath 2. You see? I'm gonna have you to use the bodkin here. Like that. So that would be 1 and 2 going underneath 2, and then the third will go underneath 3, and so on. So now I know I have to get out here, right? But I'm using the bodkin from the other direction. I also like to kind of tilt the basket that way when I'm doing this move, and use the bodkin from this way. This is, I found that this is the most comfortable way for me. You can see here it's going underneath 3. And the last one will go here. Sometimes it's a little hard to see it, but as you go on and gain experience, you'll learn to see it very easily. That's it. We have finished our 4-rod border, and we can trim the ends now. For the last demonstration of the finishing part, I've made a 5-rod border. You can see now that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs, but I've made a different variation of a 5-rod border than the one we've done earlier. This time I've gone behind 2 in the beginning, and then over 3 and behind 2, not over 4 and behind 1. So, which means that these last 5 rods that we have to weave will have to go behind 2. This means that this first one has to get out here behind 2. So let's see, this is our exit point. We know that, right? So this would be behind 1 and this would be 2. So I have to go behind this, and actually I'm doing the same thing that the upright has done in the beginning. I like to call it joining borders, because the last part, the second part of the weave and the first part of taking down the uprights is the same, and they're joining here, and it has a different look to it. Now the second one, I have to get out here, right? The last one is here, so I have to get out here behind 2. So that would be 1, 2, like this. Third one. Actually, it's easier if you're just, because it's what I call a joining border, it's easier just to see what this upright here is doing and just to join it along its root. Very, very simple. And the last one doesn't want to get out. Alright, there we have it, a 5-rod border. So when we're talking about variations, the first and most simple variation type that we can make is to play around with how many we're going in front of and how many we're going behind as we are making a border. So suppose I'm making a 4-rod border. Let's begin by going behind 2 this time. So I've begun, and usually you would see basically pretty much all rod borders that you'll see go before all except one. So they always go behind one. If it could be a 4-rod border, it could be a 7-rod border, but it will only go behind one. And I think for a very good reason, because it looks very attractive. And it has a very strong lock to it at the end, because when you're going behind one like this, you kind of lock it in place very tightly. But I can also, instead of doing this, I can go over 2 and behind 2 like that. So that would be a variation on a 4-rod border that I really like to do. I used to do it a lot. Now I like the classical version better because I think it looks better. But let's just go on here and see how it's done. So instead of just taking one upright here and just going behind it, I'm always kind of grabbing on 2 uprights. I don't like to count the before, because some of them had already been taken down. This upright here is 1, so I have to count. When I count, I have to count over 1, 2, and then behind 1, 2, if you will. But that's really unnecessary. I only have to count the behind. I only have to count the behind 1 or the behind 2. So here I'm just taking these 2 uprights together and going behind them, and keep going. So this would be one variation. You see that it has a different look to it. Now, some other variations could be to start behind 3. So I will do a 4-rod border. It starts behind 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see, they're going behind 3. 1, 2, 3 uprights. And now I might do the over 3 and behind 1, and I might do the over 2 and behind 2. I might even do something weird like over 1 and behind 3, which will probably won't look that good, but basically I can just play around and see how things look. So let's do the over 2 and behind 2 here. So it looks like this. Now this will not be what I'm calling a joining border, because the upright here is going behind 3, so it's 3 and 2. It has an interesting look to it. So I'm going behind 2 here, and then the uprights go joins it behind 3. So another variation. You can see that you can really play around with it, and it has a different look to it. You might say it's interesting, you might say it's unattractive, but it's a variation. And I can play around like that in, you know, basically everything, you know, 4, 5, 6 rod borders, and see what can be done. So that's the first kind of variations that you can make. Another type of variation, which I really like and can be very useful sometimes and give a very attractive look, is what I call the tucked in border. So I will show what I mean by that. Let's make a 3-rod border, a classical behind one 3-rod border, and we're just kind of going along here until we get to the stage in which we have 3 pairs. So making a 3-rod border, and we've gotten to the stage where we have pairs. So a tucked in border, as I like to call them, will be a border in which the edges are not trimmed outside, they're not staying outside. So this means that instead of taking just the right one here and weaving it, I will take both rods together, put them in, and then only come out with the right one, the one that should have made the move. So let's just arrange it like that. So you can see it has a very attractive look to it, much more full, much more rich, and the edges are trimmed inside. Let's see that again. We are taking both rods together. Instead of just taking the right one and making a weave like that, we are taking both of them together. The left one is which turned into a right one here stays inside, and the one that should have gone out in the first place is going on. And taken down. Very interesting look, very beautiful. You will see that a lot in 3-rod borders and maybe 2-rod borders. I don't see it so much in 4-rod borders or more, but it basically could be done. You could basically do whatever you want. So that would be one variation. Let's see another type of a tucked in border. Let's try a 4-rod tucked in border. Why not? Start them behind one here. Let's see what happens. Just rushing through this stage until I have pairs, and we're there. So we have pairs now, and as I've said earlier, we're taking both of them together. One stays inside, the other one keeps going. Can you see clearly? Looks kind of weird, but everything is possible. Actually, this is important because sometimes I would see, actually it looks pretty good, I would see people making just regular borders, just taking the right one and just leaving the edges outside as they normally would be, and then when they are finished and they're completely finished, they will take these edges and they will tuck them in one by one at the end, and this to me is just a mistake, because you're working harder and you're breaking something into two steps, which could be done easier as you're going along. So if you want a tucked in border, this is the way to go. Of course, there are other ways to use the ends here to do different things. I mean, I might go and tuck them underneath, in which case I will have to do it at the end. I can't do it as I'm going along. Well, that's it. Another type of variation is what I would call a doubled border. And what do I mean by that? This is very similar to the tucked in border. Let's make a 2-rod border for this. 1, 2. So we're going along until we have pairs. And now, once we have pairs, we are taking both of them together and weave both of them to the outside, not leaving one in as in what I call a tucked in border. Both of them are going outside, and then I will take down this upright. I would keep going with 2. Now once I have 3 here, I will only take 2 and leave the left one to stay. So here the edges will stay out as normal, but the border will be thicker and more massive, as you can see. Let's make a couple more moves just to get the hang of it. Down upright. You can see that the principles really stays the same even if I'm doing some variations. And this could be very helpful in some situations, because you might not have a lot of length left, but you want to make a border which is stronger and contains more of the material, and this could be perfect for that situation. Also for situations in which the uprights are a little too far apart from each other and you want to kind of fill that gap with something so it will sit tightly, this can only be used. Very simple, very beautiful variation. Of course, once I've doubled a certain border, I could also think about tripling it. Instead of taking just the 2 here, when I got to the first 3, I could have taken all 3. Like that, giving it even a thicker look. But the more I double, triple, quadruple, and whatever, the more steps I will have to do at the end. So you have to think about it too, because when you're doing a doubled border, you will have more steps at the end. Suppose I'm making a 2-rod border, I won't have just 2 left, I will have 4 moves left. I will have like 2 pairs left, and I would weave both pairs, and then out of these pairs I will have to weave 1. So I said you can triple, but you can also kind of double and then tuck in. So we are in like a doubled border now, so I will take all 3 and just get out with the 2. So this would be, I would call this a doubled tucked in border, or whatever you want to call it, something like that. And that looks gorgeous. I mean, we've only done a 2-rod border, which sounds like nothing fancy, but look how good it looks. Just beautiful. Now let's look at the end of doubled borders, as I call them. So we're here in our doubled 2-rod border, and we're almost to the finishing part here. And taking down the last upright, and once we've done that, we are in the finishing part. So you see here that instead of pairs we have triples. So now, instead of just having 2 moves left to make, which would be in a normal 2-rod border, 1 and 2, we actually have 4 moves. We're doubling our moves. We have to take both of these together, and after we've done this, we will have to take one of them further. Let's see how that's done. If we can find our bodkin here. Yes. So as I said earlier, I like to kind of tilt the basket in a position which is more comfortable for me. That would be one of them. Second, and now you can see that they don't really sit nicely side by side, so we have to take care of that. Okay, now these two. As you can imagine, in Willow it's going to be much more difficult to make all these extra moves at the end. So you can kind of take care of it by adding additional rods at the beginning. We'll talk about it in the plate border video, which will be my next video. Okay. Now, once we've done these 2 moves, we have still 2 moves more left to do. This would be the first and the second. So this will go. And here. Yes. One. And 2. Let's just arrange it nicely, and we have a 2-rod doubled border. Lovely, isn't it? We've talked about doubled rod borders, and I want to show something that can really help you if you're choosing to make like a 4 double rod border or a 5 double rod border, because you have to realize that you, instead of 4 moves left at the finishing part, you will have 8 moves left, and in a 5-rod border you will have 10 moves left, which is pretty exhausting, and you don't want to get through it. So you might take some additional rods and just add them at the beginning, so that you wouldn't have to do all this process at the end. So I will take 1 rod and make like 1 weave move, just like that. And after I've done it, I will add an upright to it. Then I will take the next one and stick it underneath, just like that, just like that, and make 1 weaving move and take down an upright. Now I only have 2 of these available now, but you can imagine that you keep doing it 4 or 5 times, and then when you continue, what you get is a doubled border, which is already doubled from the beginning, so you wouldn't have to do these additional moves at the end. You will only, if you're making a 5-rod double border, you will only have to make 5 moves at the end. Another type of border, which is a variation which is possible, will be a side border. You probably won't see it in rod borders, but you will see it a lot in plate borders. I won't talk about it here. I will just kind of say what the principle is, and it's very simple. You're combining like a track border, which will be our third video. I'm basically just taking all rods behind 1, 2, or whatever you feel like, or whatever seems right to you at the current situation. And once you've done that, you are making a border on the side, so it wouldn't be apparent from the upper side. It will be apparent from the side here. That's the principle of it, and we'll talk about it in more detail in our next video.